All right, today we have Deshaun Perry on the podcast. Deshaun is the owner operator of artofalley.com, A11y.com. Deshaun is relatively newer to accessibility. He's a digital accessibility designer with a few years experience, but he is building up his own business. And I wanted to bring him on to discuss what he's doing, why he decided to get into accessibility, and just what his outlook is on building a business and growing his clientele. So first, Deshaun, thanks so much for being on the podcast. But then also, can you tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So as you said, I'm fairly new to the world of accessibility. Just been doing this for a couple years, but I'm not new to kind of the technical aspects of it. So I started out as a graphic designer and got into web development right at the start of my career. So the first few years of my career, I was doing nothing but responsive web design and got really good at HTML and CSS. Picked up a little bit of programming in PHP, and I did that for 13 years for the same company. And a few years ago when I started learning about what accessibility was and why it was so important, I realized I have all the skills to do this. There's no reason I shouldn't do this. And it was kind of like that missing element for me. Because design is great and everything, but when you're just doing apps or marketing and stuff like that for products that aren't really super important to you, there's just a lack of like that motivation, that inspiration. But then when I discovered accessibility, it's like I could actually do a lot of good here. I can finally put like everything I know into something that actually like makes the world better for people. And so I really just dug in and hit the ground running with it and started taking a bunch of classes and practicing on my own, doing volunteer work just to, get some experience under my belt. And I just fell in love with it. Like it's everything. It's all of my favorite parts of design and programming, and I get to use it for something positive in the world. So I'm like a huge proponent of it, and I try to convince everybody who I know is like a programmer or designer, like you gotta get into this. Like this is what you need. This is it's fun and it's worth a lot to people. So for many reasons, and I don't know if everyone hears me on that, but like I think they will. I think people are starting to become a lot more aware of it for sure, and especially now that they kind of have to, just because of certain laws coming into effect. But beyond that, it's just it adds an element to your site that, or just anything, any digital document that just it gives it weight. It gives it like it makes it feel like a valuable, truly like usable product, and that's what I love about it.
Well, so you just stated like you've put a lot of investment into really building up your accessibility knowledge and making sure you're well-rounded in accessibility. With when you were taking these courses, getting the certification, spending all of this time, what did you have in mind as the end objective to all of this? Was this to get a job? Was this just to learn more about accessibility? Was this to build a business? Like, what was your mindset on that?
Kind of all three, honestly. The company I worked for, I worked there for 13 years and it dissolved. And so I was, kind of left to my own devices. And I started off just looking for a job, but the job market it's really hard right now. It still is. And this was, back in 2024 when I started. And I had to end up picking up, a bunch of odd jobs, just like design and tried teaching for a while. I tried selling insurance for a while. But it's that's kind of the nice thing about accessibility though is like there are a lot of companies out there, and they're growing, and so like I do always have my eye out for like those bigger clients and those bigger organizations, but it's also something that you can do it on your own. Like I've done a lot of volunteer work just on my own to get some experience, and like there is a clear need. Like almost every website that I visit out there has accessibility problems, and most people that I talk to, they don't even know what it is yet. And as soon as I explain it to them, it makes so much sense, like why you would want your website to be available to everybody, not just from a business point of view, but just from like an ethical point of view and just like a pride point of view, pride in your own product. You want it to be available to anyone who wants it. So, I kind of attack it from every angle. The job market is tough. So now I'm going with, I'm trying to build my own business with it, because I gotta make it work somehow. So, and then the education too. Like I just like taking classes. I'm always taking online classes. And so like I do it for myself too, because I just like doing it and it's just fun work for me. So um,
You said pride right there, pride in basically what you're offering, or yeah, what you're offering, your products or your services. And I think that's a really good point because what I see over and over again is, when we look at, I'm just thinking of different companies, and we don't have to look any further than the accessibility space. I don't see people taking pride in what they're doing. I see people looking to maximize their short-term profits, but and this is just in general. It's like when you, especially, the larger companies come to mind because just they're so prevalent, and you try to work with them, but they have really bad customer experiences. And this is beyond just accessibility. This is just about like your product or service. And what happens all too often is they start off with what is a really nice product or service that actually has value, and then over time they realize they can extract more money in the interim. They do so, but along with that goes back to your point, like where was the pride in just having a solid value, offering something that is helpful and useful, and not trying to extract every last, all of the money from the market. And then what
Exactly.
that happen with that, what comes with that, right, is like worse product, worse customer experience. We're not going to respond to your emails. I mean, just like, just thinking about flights and all of the cancellations, where's the pride there? And just having an airline where you are dependable. I see this over and over again. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think that is kind of that comes with the territory of scale. Like it's just hard to scale that individual kind of or that really customized experience for people the more you grow. And I think that's why like as I think that's kind of a good balance because it gives small businesses the opportunity to come in. It feels hard, like it feels intimidating to compete against these larger companies, but there's something that you have as a small company that they just can't because you can pay more attention to the customer's real needs and their experience on a deeper level than these larger companies can. They just have to kind of gloss over it because there are certain things about just the human experience that it just can't be it can't be ported into an algorithm that is just this cold machine, this cold system to deal with people. It can't do that. And so with as a small business owner, that's your advantage right there is maybe you're not making the millions and billions that they're making, but you have the opportunity to provide better service than they can for many reasons, just because it's a more intimate level with your customers. You get to know them better. You get to understand their problems better. And scale up from there, but at the risk of losing that personability, I guess. And so I think we have a real opportunity to take advantage of that because most of these companies who need accessibility really badly, they are also small companies. And they do also want to make sure that their products are on a level that the big companies can't compete with just because they can't, like I said, they just can't scale that type of experience for people. So I think that we just have a real opportunity to kind of work together on that.
Yeah, it's opportunity on top of our opportunity, digital accessibility, wide open space, right? Like
Mhm.
there's so much need for digital accessibility, and we can see the companies in this space. We can see it every day exactly what they're doing wrong. So,
Oh yeah.
I mean, for people that want to enter this space, whether it is a job, whether it is a small business, whether you just want to be a contractor and you don't want to take on all of the formal responsibilities, there's so much room here. And that's really, like, I think people think there's a mystique to the larger companies. There's really not. All they're doing is taking the accessibility professionals and acting as a middleman. In a lot of senses,
Mhm.
that's what's happening. So, I mean, to anybody watching, you could definitely be the one that is fulfilling all that, really helping all of these clients. And that's what the clients need. They need real value, and they need someone who's going to be honest with them, and actually genuinely help them. And so, you also mentioned the job market. This is besides accessibility. I'm just interested. Um, I've heard bad things about the job market. Like, what was your general experience when you were applying?
Yeah, so that was kind of crazy. I hadn't applied for jobs like that in 13 years. I worked at that company for so long and it was a different world the first time I did the job search. So now suddenly everything is like AI. You've got these, ATS trackers. You got to make sure your resume has all the right keywords and not only that, but you're no longer bringing your resume, in person to a company. You're sending it out to people on the internet. And you can see, like, just on LinkedIn, like, they're getting hundreds, if not thousands, of resumes on every job post. And so, if you're not like that first day, within like the first hour, sending a good resume, which is hard because you have to hit those keywords and you have to, like, it takes a long time to prepare a good application. It takes more than an hour for me. And yeah, it's just hard to even get your foot in the door unless you know somebody personally who's hiring. Like, that seems to be like I mean, that's always been the most successful way to get a job, but it's like super important now, but not everybody has that. And I'm not an extremely social, like networking person all the time. And so like, I don't really have that resource like other people do. And yeah, so I was just kind of, shooting my resume out there to as many employers as I could find and getting some rejection emails, and that felt okay, but you don't get feedback either on like why you get rejected. So you don't know if your resume even got seen by a person. It could have just been auto rejected because it's just a generic message. You don't know if they like saw your portfolio. So you don't really know where in the process you're going wrong. And so you sit there and you stew in it and you change your resume all the time, like trying to find the right formula for your cover letter, all this and that, and it's too many moving pieces. It's so hard to deal with, and so like it is discouraging. But I think you just have to realize like it's not you. And I think another component of it too is I think that a lot of these job posters, they are. It seems to me like they are just like data mining basically because most of them they don't even put like a location. It's just a United States remote or something, and they repost it over and over again every month. And it doesn't seem like they're ever actually hiring anybody, and you never know. And so it almost feels like you're being scammed. Like you're just like it's a big phishing scam, and you're sending all of your information. Your resume has so much personal information on it, and you're just sending it out to everybody. It's like really unsettling, and it doesn't feel good at all. So, but yeah, like these job posters, they're using AI to write the job posts too. I'm sure of it because so many of them sound exactly the same. And I think AI, like when it writes a job post, I think it wants to sound professional, so it asks for like the world from the potential employee. Like they want you to have like all these degrees or like know all of these different languages and be able to design and be able to do just have every skill under in the world, and no one will feel qualified for any of those things. And so just finding a job that one you feel qualified for, and two that you're early enough that you can get in while the getting's good, it's really difficult. And so that was a tough one to kind of overcome, and obviously I still haven't overcome it because I never ended up going to work for any big company. It's just been odd jobs, but and that's exactly why I'm taking this route now is because, I got to make something work. And at this point, like I've been on my own for so long, like I know what I want to do. And these companies, they're not really offering what I want to do anymore. And like I want to do accessibility. I want to help lots of companies, improve their user experience, and make sure that they have, their doors open to as many people as possible. And so that's what I take joy in. And that's what I'm going after now. Not to say if someone comes and offers me like, this huge six-figure salary, like, hey, I'll take that, but but in the meantime, I'm going to be building up this business. So
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like you always want to be open to
mhm,
possibilities, but in the traditional sense of applying in the job market, and I've heard this from others, but um, to me, what it reminds me of is, in a way, it's analogous to gambling on sports because
mhm,
you're continually investing into something that the return there's not like it's like you're investing energy time into this void where there's no value really created, right? Like your value is lost because you've applied to those jobs, you've updated your resume, you've spent time researching, looking into this. Like there's so much time that's invested and it goes just nowhere. And that's
yeah,
the same with gambling is like so much time is invested in watching the games, studying the statistics, and it just all of that energy, the value, intelligence, it goes nowhere. And that's the same with the job market. So I think, I mean, yes, like applying to jobs like that can work too, but I think you should, you can only apply for so long before you do what you did, and you have to create your own job, so to speak.
mhm,
And yeah, maybe you end up you end up starting a small business, but in the meantime, like you said, you could just take contracting work, and look and see where you can find your own opportunities. But the job market doesn't make a lot of sense. Like it doesn't make practical sense because I mean, look what you just described. I mean, you spent I don't know how many months and hours. I mean, just think about all of that time that's gone. Where if you would have just invested in yourself, like you could have got a
mhm.
return on that. And it's
Oh yeah,
not to say that you went the wrong route because you're looking for those opportunities, but it's just not coming back to the people from the job market.
yeah, 100%. And they're the value that you like. I would say if anything that I got out of the job hunt was just you're learning what like people are looking for and what people are hiring for at least. And so like you're still gathering information for yourself, but as far as like a return on, investing your time, um, it's like you said, it's just going into the void, and then you're kind of left with this feeling of like, man, if I had just spent that time building something for myself, like think of how much farther I could be, than spending hours, building this great thing, to get me hired or at least, recognized and at this company, and then they don't even respond to you. It's like what am I doing after a while? Like,
Yeah, it's like why, and some what I also really dislike is some of these openings are disingenuous. They're not really positions. Like you
mhm,
said, even the ones where they're requiring an obnoxious amount of qualifications or whatever it is. Like, and then on top of that, they'll want to pay less than market value for what they're listing. And so it's
yeah,
just obnoxious. Like I think they should not, like if you don't really have a job opportunity, I think because you see just so much time and energy wasted, I think that there actually needs to be a law against posting opportunities where there are none. Like don't post a disingenuous, like are you actually looking for help or are you not? And if you're
right.
not, don't post.
Yeah, I agree with that because it's abusive is what it is. Like you're just trapping people into wasting so much energy on that, and for just so you can gather, collect resumes or gather data or have something in your back pocket for maybe way down the road. Like it's not fair to people who are really struggling to make ends meet. Like you're taking away time from them that they could be spending that's actually valuable and going to pay off, so they can support themselves. So yeah, it's rough out there, and I feel for everyone who's going through it right now because it's really easy to turn that rejection on yourself and make you feel like you don't you're missing something that they're looking for, but it's not that usually. It's just that it's the nature of the job search these days. It's just not geared to help most people succeed anymore. So like I think we just need a new approach, and right now like that approach is kind of making your own way. I think, at least for me, that's what it's becoming. So uh, it's a hard truth that I didn't really want to face at first, but I'm like, you know, there's no denying it now. Like I've just got to make something for myself at this point because I can't rely on hoping that someone's gonna hire me suddenly at a salary that's like a livable salary too,
Right.
because that's the thing. Like you can get interviews with companies that don't want to pay anything, but then you're spending 40 hours a week not making enough money, and you could be spending 40 hours a week building something for yourself that has more potential. So if I think if you're able, like, um, why not try? Like just try.
Yeah, and that's what I've started talking about more and more because I see the opportunities firsthand because I'm talking to all of these clients. I mean, it's very obvious to me like there's a real need, but I think what's happening is in the marketplace, like the direct connection is being lost.
Mhm.
And we're not just syncing up like someone who can provide the service with someone who is asking for the service. That's not happening. That's getting lost. There's so much money being lost, and so yeah, like that's why I've started talking more and more about accessibility professionals, and at some point you have to think like even if your preference is a job, at some point you just have to create your own, like you really do,
Mhm.
like it's, and that way at least you're working on your own terms as well. And I think paradoxically in the sense that it's not like traditionally people think of jobs as safe. They're actually the opposite. They're very risky because at any
Mhm.
time you lose it and you're down to zero. But if you have, let's say, 10 clients in your portfolio and you're working with them on an ongoing basis and they're potentially referring someone to you every so often, you can build up a large client portfolio and be diversified. And,
Oh yeah.
I mean, you'd be better off and you'll make more money. So I think and that's what we've been talking a lot about too in the community. But yeah, so now that you're still open to a job, but at the same time you're broadening your outlook on like different possibilities. What is there a direction you're looking at, or is there something where you're honing in and thinking like this is what feels or seems like the right direction to go?
So, remediation is like kind of what I'm best at right now. Like my background with HTML and CSS especially is just like I think I said earlier, like when I first started getting into accessibility, I realized I have like all the skills to do this. I just need to know the rules now, and now I know the rules, and so remediation is like my biggest kind of like my best contribution that I can do. Also, visual design. So I have, I started out as a graphic designer. I went to school for graphic design, and then my whole career was web design and UX design, things like that. So I'm kind of a one-stop shop for your user experience, but with a real serious like focus on making sure the accessibility is right, because that is like the key that almost every website I go to is missing, to some degree or another. And most people are completely missing it. Just very simple things. Some things as simple as like keyboard focus, like there's so much that people can do for, and it will change the way that their products are accessed, that it will open up the door to so many people. And so that is just like the most important thing to me. So yeah, remediation, that is where I take most pride in, because that is actually implementing the changes that are needed to get you up and running and ready to go in your field. So But yeah, my website is artofally.com. It's fairly new, and as the name implies, like it's not just about the functionality. Like I want it to look amazing also. So it's I know there's kind of this misconception that if your site is accessible, it's got to be ugly, but that is just not true at all. Like there's so much you can do. In fact, like any artist is going to tell you, the more broad the parameters are, the harder it is to like achieve anything of value in work. Like that blue sky phase where there's no limits and there's no constraints, it's so hard to do a work that is like meaningful that way. But as soon as you put, some kind of boundary or some kind of parameter on your aim, like that gives you a direction to go. And accessibility is like such a good model for that because there are things that now there's objective criteria for what is good design and what is bad design. And my fellow designers will know when a client tells you they just want it to pop, like that means nothing. That is so hard to deal with because that means nothing, but it could mean anything. And so, like, it's hard to work with that. But with accessibility, it's like, okay, now we know where the boundaries are, and we can make something look good within those boundaries. We can make something look really good, and it gives you opportunity to innovate as well because there are challenging scenarios, to make something usable and to make it look good. And there's some really creative solutions out there, and it's really fun to try to come up with those. Like, it's so fresh right now. So if you're a designer, like get into that because it's fun. It's fun. That's why I like it.
And I think there's also, so I've definitely come across that misconception where people think, oh, it's if it's accessible, then my website's going to look ugly. And I think sometimes that comes from you'll see some accessibility providers and their website will be very plain or just it won't. There's not a style to it. It's just like here's my website, somewhat of like a carryover from the HTML days of the early
Mhm.
2000s, late 1990s. But you can put whatever design you want to, right? You're not this like accessibility does not limit design. It just makes it accessible. So
Right.
there's
Right.
no like you can have the best looking website you want.
And I think like I understand that too, like because yeah, we've all seen those sites that are, they're geared to be accessible, but they don't have design in mind, or they're just, they're kind of the pioneers of accessibility, and so the functionality was more important than the way it looked. But we're getting beyond that phase a little bit, and to the point where now we have parameters that we know are really helpful for people, and we can start like, figuring out ways to bring back that visual design that we love in a way that still works for people. And so, the it's a whole new territory when you think about it that way. And I think that, that is why it's going to blow up. That's why it is blowing up, I think. I in this past month or two, like the accessibility community, I've just been digging in, joining all of the Slack groups and Discord groups and the forums and everything and LinkedIn, and the community is huge and it's awesome and it's supportive and like everybody just wants everyone else to succeed. Like um it's a competitive industry, but it's like the most supportive industry also that I've ever been a part of. So it's amazing.
One, that's great to hear because I've experienced the opposite in some ways, but I think that's more, I think that's more outside of the groups and it's more individual. But like two, you made me think just today, this is so random. I don't normally come across like really well-designed websites, but today I had a prospective client reach out to me, ask about an audit their website, and it was themed too. It was like it matched what they were offering. The theme was so nice, and I think this we become accustomed to a very streamlined design where yes, it's like the aesthetics will look nice, but it's like the same as you've come across before. It's like
Mhm.
this is the same site, this is the same site. In fact, I was looking at a web app that I recently purchased, and I noticed that they were using an AI design because I've had the same AI design. But there's something to be said for like a custom design that just to use your word pops right like that just like when you come across it like you're like oh this is different and it's like immediately you're drawn to it because it's just so attractive that you're like okay well yeah what have you here because just your design alone is so sleek or so fluid with what you're offering it's inviting.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that because I think design people aren't paying as much attention to design and they're not realizing how much a custom design can set you apart.
Yeah, so we are a little bit pigeonholed, I think, with a lot of these websites. Everyone's kind of conforming to uh, the same designs as you said. Like, there's just a few kind of main layouts that everybody uses, which is great for, you know, everyone's mental model of the site. Everyone knows how to navigate it and everything, but it also there is that boring element to it as well. And so, accessibility, approaching it from that perspective, it gives you an opportunity to sort of rethink what like good visual design is as well. Like when you whenever a new style pops in, it's always like kind of funky and you're not sure if you really like it at first, And I think with a lot of accessibility that I've seen, accessible design that I've seen, I kind of felt that same way. Like there are certain designs that are ugly, but then there are certain things that are just funky and you're like, I don't know about that. But then it grows on you and you're like, oh, I do like something about that and I'm gonna start using it. Like for me, that when people come up with like good ways to show focus on things like that, like really just makes me happy when I see a cool, focus effect. And like there's just things that you just don't think about outside of that accessibility lens. And so I think it's going to push design in a whole new direction because we've been kind of in the same direction for a long time, like big, huge, splashy background images, flat design, a lot of like big, chunky letters that aren't really like they're just decoration. They're not really readable or functional or anything like that. Which, that's fine a little bit, but um, it's overdone too. Like everything is just so overdone. And accessible websites, they're the most unique ones I've seen as of late. And they work really, really well, much better than most of these flashy websites that have all this like parallax effect and these things flying across and all over the place. And it's just craziness. And it's slow and it's terrible. And it from a visual perspective, yes, it looks interesting, but from a usability perspective, it is terrible. And it's frustrating. And so like, yeah, with accessibility, it's kind of a blend of we're bringing that functionality back to a new level, and it's so much more pleasant to be on a site that like that you can actually use. And I was never really a keyboard user until I became an accessibility designer, but I love just using a website with a keyboard now. It's like, if you get really good with software, usually, or if you see someone who's really good with certain software, like design software, for example, the pros, they use all the hotkeys. They know all the hotkeys. They do everything with the keyboard because it's fast and it's efficient. And like that's how I use websites now is just the keyboard because it's so fast. It's much faster than with the mouse, and it's just gonna feel really good when your website can support that kind of thing. For everybody, it's gonna feel good to you because you have a good product, but it's gonna feel really good to like your veteran users who just know how to operate it quickly, and for people who are new to your site because they're not gonna have to like sit there and try to make it work, as best they can. It's just gonna work, how it needs to. And so,
You made me think of so many different things as you were talking. One, I never realized, I never had thought about sliders until I became aware of accessibility. And accessibility pointed out to me that sliders are wrong. Like you wouldn't want to use a slider because what happens is I think you have people that want to have more on their website than fits on their website. So the idea is we'll have a slider and that enables us to have more content. But what it really does is it really just it's there's still content that's not going to show at any given time. You don't
mhm.
know if someone's going to see the other content. And really you just shouldn't have a slider because it doesn't it's like you're trying to do too much and it's like you just need to focus in on the content and then if the content doesn't fit then put it somewhere else.
Yes, yeah. It really makes you have to, use some discernment in the way you design your elements, which is good because it's going to keep people focused and it's going to keep you focused too on what's important, to your customers and to your company as well. So, and yeah, the sliders, oh my goodness, everyone loves those things, and they're they're such a nightmare to deal with. Oh my God.
And I don't know this to be true, but in my head, I think that it's like I could just imagine like a boardroom where it's like everyone wants their idea to be on the homepage, and so that the compromise is like let's have a slider, and then everyone loses. So that's what always comes to my mind. But you're so right about that. Same thing with keyboard accessibility. Like I'll actually get trapped using a mouse, and I will
Mhm.
go to keyboard, and it's like I can get to where I need to, and it's like I mean, of course, if I'm at this point, it's like a bad we've got a bad multiple things, right? Bad design, bad accessibility, but just using keyboard has helped me get to complete an action where I wouldn't if I didn't know about keyboard accessibility, I wouldn't have been able to. So sometimes like I'll get stuck at a position and then I'll be able to tab down, but I can't get through without with using a mouse. So that has helped. Do you is there any part of conversion rate optimization in your design?
Um, I'm not, that's not really my area of expertise, necessarily. Like I've never really dealt with like those kind of metrics before. I'm much more on like the implementation side and the prototyping side, and then, the marketing stuff. I've dealt a little bit with it, but I'm much more focused on is this like actually usable, and are people going to be able to complete the process in a way that makes sense and is reasonably, time efficient and not confusing, like I don't know how you can um, create a better system for conversion rates than having a usable product. If your product's not usable, you're not going to convert anybody.
Right,
So,
right.
like accessibility, if you don't know anything about that stuff, and like I'm no expert in it, but what I can say is exactly that, is if it's not even usable, then you don't even have to think about conversion rates because you're not going to convert anybody. So accessibility is like the starting ground for that, because if it's accessible, you're going to make sure that you have the most people who are able to actually complete the processes that you need them to complete. Um,
And
so,
for designers who are newer to accessibility or unaware of accessibility, what do you think they should know? Like, what would you tell someone who's like, I'm a designer, I have great design, but I'm just finding out about accessibility.
so I would say um, it can feel intimidating at first, especially if you're not like a programmer or like a coder or anything. But don't be discouraged by that, because there are a lot of just visual elements that you can be aware of, like contrast, like hierarchy, like and just basic markup too makes a big difference. So just understanding like, there's 6 header levels. That's very, very easy to understand. And it's just H1 through H6, and like just being able to make sure that you have just an organized hierarchy that way, starting with those very simple things, it's going to improve drastically. Like the smallest changes make the biggest differences. I'm not even kidding. Like what I was saying before with the focus styling, like it's such a simple thing to do, to come up with like, when someone is focused on this element, this is how I want it to look. Just providing that to your developer so that they can implement that is going to make a huge difference, because now people can use your site with a keyboard. If they don't have anything like that, then they're blocked out from the get-go. So there are a lot of really, really easy things that you can do that make the most difference on websites. So it's not about perfection. Nobody's perfect, and it's so don't let that stop you. If you can't, if you feel like you can't be perfect because you can't, um, that's not a reason to not look into accessibility, because no one was perfect, and no one is perfect with their accessibility designs. So we're all at different stages.
Well, that leads to my next question. So we're at different stages, like professionally, when it comes to a job, when it comes to clients, when it comes to looking for opportunities, where are you at right now, and what does your day-to-day look like?
So my day to day right now is really it's been a lot of networking and learning just kind of the different players in the accessibility world. Who are like kind of the top voices, who are the top companies, what are the most common tools that people are using, and then also what are just like the most common services that people need. So when I'm looking around at different websites, I can't help it now, but just to take note of any shortcomings that they might have. And it's like all the same things for all for most websites. So you really get a sense of what people need help with. And as far as the client search goes, I'm just now starting to dig into that. I do still have my eye out for like I do look at the job boards, for like employment, but also mainly for like contract work now. Um, and short-term stuff or part-time stuff, because those are the people, who they're just starting out, and that's who I want to help the most, is because they need the most help. The people who are just getting their wheels turning, they're going to be able to experience, the biggest leap forward, and I love seeing people go from a totally inaccessible website to something that works, like just and seeing it click in their eyes when they use their website, and they understand like, oh yeah, this is how it should work, this makes so much sense now. And once that clicks in your mind, and you have that understanding, it's you can't go back. Like it becomes just a foundational thing, a foundational core design principle that it needs to function a certain way so everyone can use it. But yeah, the client search though, that I'm just starting with, so it's slowly becoming a big part of my day. I've been setting up my infrastructure, so right now I've got my whole scheduling infrastructure is set up so like people can actually meet with me, and it's easier for me to like manage my time that way. I use Calendly for that. And then I just got my website up and running, so that's good to go. And it's got the contact form, so anyone can reach out to me. And it's a free meeting at first, just to like it's a short meeting, but it's just to talk through, what do you even need? What's your scope look like? What's your budget look like? What are you trying to accomplish? Like, do you just need to know more information because I can help you, with that? Or are you trying to like actually implement something quick? Or are you trying to, do some groundwork and lay a foundation for like sustainable accessibility? Because like I'll help you with all of those things. So it's really just a process of like opening myself up now to people, um, which is scary but fun, and and exciting. So yeah, I'm pumped to be at this stage right now.
And you mentioned you use Calendly. Are there any other apps, software, services recommendations that you have? Like anything that you really like using or that just has really been helpful to you?
So like I use Google Workspace a lot. Like I use Google Drive for file transfer and everything, and for documentation because most people have a Gmail account and they're free if they don't. So when I need to communicate with people, especially because part of my work is in visual design, I have heavy files a lot of times that I need to transfer back and forth, and it's just like a super convenient way to do it. I'm all about like cost management because I'm just starting out, so I can't get like too crazy with the costs yet. So anything that's free. Let's see, what else do I use? I just got Stripe set up also. And that's for payments. And then the different uh, chat apps, so Slack and Discord, and there's a bunch of accessibility groups on there, and those are super helpful because there are tons of accessibility professionals who are like more than willing to answer your questions when you get stuck. People are asking questions all the time on there, and you can just sort through and find answers that people have already sought out, and you can ask your own questions. And yeah, it's an invaluable resource. Like if you're getting into accessibility, look for those groups. I don't know that I can invite people, but if you reach out to me, like I can see about how to invite people to those groups as well.
So a few more things I wanted to ask you. Wait, I have a list here and I lost track of it.
Sure.
Let's see. So we're going to you made me think about design. Like you brought design back into my like I just every now and then I forget, there's certain concepts, things. I'm forgetting things all the time, but like as I'm talking to you, and I think people watching maybe also have this, I now want to pay closer attention to my design. Like I'm just like now I'm like, what you I maybe it's also I was like, I started to think about this design earlier today, and now I'm like, I want a better design because like when you have something that really is like just it stands out. It doesn't have to be stunning, but it stands out. It's clean, it's simple, and it draws you in. I think there's a natural conversion effect there, right? Like people are just like,
Mhm.
I connect with you because like, or I connect with your company because like, hey, like this is drawing me in. So I think one is just, I think more people are now like anybody that's watching this. I think they're going to start thinking about more about design. And I can tell you, I'm going to talk to you about working on design just because I think this is something where, we have AI and AI is capable of so many things, but also um, it's not the same, right? Like you just don't get that same uniqueness
Right.
that you can get with when you're working with someone who's a professional who has experience in this space. And I thought like I came across the Art of Ali too, and I thought I was like, this is a really good design. By the way, link to that will be in the description for this video. Is there anything else that you'd like to add in, or you feel like anybody's missing, or really open here?
Hmm. Right, honestly, right now, like I think the biggest mission is just boosting awareness and like encouraging people that, this is for everybody. Like this isn't just for, you don't have to be like a quote accessibility professional to care about accessibility and to learn something about it. Like this, the only way that this works is if, on all levels and kind of in every from every perspective, people are thinking about this. Because if like let's say you have a design team and they're very cognizant of accessibility, but then your engineering and your executives, they know nothing about it, it breaks down like right away. Like you really need people in every area to understand like how they contribute. So regardless of what your skill set is, or kind of what domain you live in, pay attention to accessibility because it's going to make it much easier for you to work with people in other areas of the workflow. But it's also going to make sure that this is sustainable for your company, and that the ball doesn't get dropped quite as much, because right now like that is the hardest issue that everyone is dealing with is just maintaining it once it's set up, but also communicating it to people who have no experience yet with it. So just the fact that if you're watching this video, you've got some interest in accessibility. So keep going with that and keep spreading the word about it because awareness is kind of the most important thing right now. It's what's gonna make this work long term. So
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I think I mean, this is so valuable, especially just like your experience and also learning about your design. And I recommend everyone to go to your website, look at that. I will be personally contacting you because I want to now, I want to have a professional look at accessible.org and really just just have a better design. Like I want even sharper design, right? More, have it be more coherent because right now the homepage is more just there to be vibrant and capture attention. But I want there to be more of a seamless
mm.
aspect to the access to the design. But yeah, it's been so nice talking to you, Deshaun. I'm going to include a link to the artofalley.com in the description. Also a link to your LinkedIn, your accessibility base. And today we've been talking a lot about being a professional in this space and whether you're pursuing a career, whether you are looking for contract work and or you're looking to build up a small business. That's a lot of what I've taken on this channel. And so we have a membership. You can join that membership. I'll include a link, but I definitely encourage anybody to join the membership. Then you can become a part of our community. And here the focus is on making more money as a professional, being more successful as a professional. And so that's part of the reason I wanted to talk about what you're doing, how to level up. Because, one thing you talked about earlier is not just, it's not just about having a livable wage, but it's about being successful and thriving and like, not just like, we don't want to just stop at one place. Like, let's take it beyond, like even beyond what you expect so that you're, having more success in a profession because there's a lot of value. Like accessibility professionals are providing a lot of value and the market is there for it. So it's all wide open right now. I keep saying that just because it's right in front of us. So Deshaun, any other final thoughts? Do you want to let anybody know where else they can contact you?
My website or LinkedIn, that's the best way to reach out to me, and I'm open to everyone. So go ahead and definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. And then yeah, I'm open to everybody. So feel free to reach out anytime. And thank you, Kris, for having me on too. This has been a great conversation. It helps me too just to like verbalize and articulate things out loud because I'm sitting here, in my head all day, like with all these ideas and kind of like this plan in my head, but like to get it like out there, it's really helpful for me as well. So, and hopefully it's helpful for the viewers out there. So thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And same thing, right? Like we're a lot of us, right? We're behind a computer all day. We might have our meetings, but we're not like there's not a lot of conversation, especially among professionals. So it's really good to talk and just like talk about the industry, the profession, what's going on, the job market, connect with someone else. So yeah, it's so great to have you on. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.